See, did you see?
He is little visible, sir.
It's okay. Okay, Hare Krishna. We're continuing with Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava. Hey, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm just resuming. Oops. Okay. In January 1914, on the Kalighat property, Bhagavati Yantra was the printing press, and he shifted it to Vrajapattana. Vrajapattana was in Mayapur. I think it is at Chaitanya Math or Yogapith or something. Vrajapattana. Two acharyas depart, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. While composing Swaniyama Dwa Dashakam at Gotrama in 1910, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur suddenly became so severely paralyzed that he could neither speak nor move, although actually he was in Samadhi, and occasionally returned to external consciousness at will. His family members took him to Calcutta for treatment, but to no avail. The condition endured for some months, and it appeared that the auspicious Thakur was about to expire. The respected Thakur was about to expire. Pleased at this prospect, certain envious persons propagated that Bhaktivinoda was now reaping due karmic reaction. pained that the purely spiritual pastimes of a Mahabhagavat were being likened to the sufferings of ordinary jivas enslaved by the material energy. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati implored at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bedside, please remain with us for some more days to further propagate the gospel of Sriman Mahaprabhu, thereby uplifting the universe. In this way, even these ignorant villains who are now criticizing you may also be benefited. Thenceforth, Thakur Bhaktivinoda gradually regained full locomotion. That means he was able to move his body fully, leading many of his detractors. Detractor is a critic, to repent and submit at his lotus feet. While enacting this Leela of sickness, now these expressions were very commonly used by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and that is why here also these expressions are used. Enacting a pastime of sickness, pretending to take diksha, deceptively being merciful upon the conditioned souls. These are all expressions that we often find in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's writings. While enacting this Leela of sickness, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was requested by Srila Gauranga Das Babaji via a Kes Goswami not to remain in Calcutta but to join him in Navadvip, because Calcutta is the place of Kali. On hearing this, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked the messenger to convey his blessings to Srila Gauranga Das Babaji for Hari Bhajan and relay the comment, where I reside is not the result of Kali. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati then explained to that Goswami, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has affirmed, Jotha Vaishnavagan Seisthan Vrindavan. Wherever Vaishnavas are present is Vrindavan. Most people who approach Babaji Maharaj do so with their own ideas. They make a show of taking sadhu sangha, but are actually unwilling to accept salutary instruction. Not interested in accepting that which is beneficial for them. He reciprocates according to their materialistic outlook and speaks in a manner for their desire. Only to one who approaches him in full surrender does Babaji Maharaj open his heart and reveal the truth. Later, Srila Saraswati Thakur revealed the inner meaning of this pastime. Toward the end of his manifest pastimes, upon seeing the dearth of bhakti in society, he adopted a vow of silence and remained immersed in Manasi Seva, devotion service performed in meditation. Those fools who in pride considered themselves devotees could not understand this pastime and thus made offense at the feet of a devotee. Wanting to see a devotee by their own feeble qualifications, they inevitably committed offenses, shedding profuse tears on seeing the distress of souls suffering in this world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ordered me to preach Shuddha Bhakti, fulfill the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and for now, to follow the tenets of devotional service. In 1913, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent a requisition from Calcutta to Sri Siddhanta Saraswati in Mayapur. So he ordered him, there are not enough devotees here. I've heard that you have many there. So from among them, send 2 men. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati accepted. But one of the dispatched men sent the other elsewhere and arrived alone in Calcutta, where for some days he served Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Shortly thereafter, Srila Bhaktivinoda wrote again to Sri Siddhanta Saraswati, stating, you are my only true Vaishnava son. Quickly free me from this association here and take me to Godruma. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati soon arrived in Bhakti Bhavan, but was prevented from taking Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur due to other family members' objections concerning the aged patriarch's health. Patriarch, the eldest male member, the ruling male member. Thus, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was obliged to return alone. Yet upon reaching the train station in Calcutta, he was met by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who had arrived by car, accompanied by the same relatives who had forbidden him to go, but finally yielded to his insistence. During this period, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was composing just give me a minute. Let me check if I have I don't seem to have Swaniyama Dwadashakam. Actually, I just seem to have read it 2 days back. How did I read it? These were the last 12 verses composed by Bhaktivinoda. It is based on Swaniyama Dashakam, the last composition of Raghunath Das Goswami. These are statements of vows that they have taken. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has taken some vows, what he would do, what he would not do. And these verses were about that. I'm talking of this. I'm talking of this. Swaniyama Dwadashakam. Anubhashya is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary to Chaitanya Charitamrita. For Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave a commentary called Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave a further explanation called Anubhashya. Anubhashya literally means further commentation. During this period, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was composing Anubhashya and regularly sending drafts to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur for checking. This endeavor much pleased Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who became especially delighted upon perusing Sri Siddhanta Saraswati's comments on Chaitanya Charitamrita 1.1.19. 18 Thakur Tine More Nath. I think it will be useful to have an idea of what was in it. This is the first purport. These three deities of Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. This purport is directly derived from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary to this. Let me read it out. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita offers his respectful obeisances unto the three deities of Vrindavan named Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Radha Govinda Dev, and Sri Radha Gopinath Ji. These three deities are the life and soul of the Bengali Vaishnavas or Gaudiya Vaishnavas who have a natural aptitude for residing in Vrindavan. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas who follow strictly in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu worship the divinity by chanting transcendental sounds meant to develop a sense of one's transcendental relationship with the Supreme Lord, Sambandha, the reciprocation of mellows, rasas of mutual affection, abhideya, and ultimately the achievement of the desired success in loving service, prayojana. These three deities are worshipped in three different stages of one's development. The followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu scrupulously, strictly follow these principles of approach. Gaudiya Vaishnavas perceive the ultimate objective in Vedic hymns composed of 18 transcendental letters that adore Krishna as Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopijana Vallabha. This is the 18-syllable Gayatri mantra. Madan Mohan is he who charms Cupid, the god of love. Govinda is he who pleases the senses and the cows, and Gopijana Vallabha is the transcendental lover of the gopis. Krishna himself is called Madana Mohan, Govinda, Gopijana Vallabha, and countless other names as he plays in his different pastimes with his devotees. The three deities, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopijana Vallabha, have very specific qualities. Worship of Madan Mohan is on the platform of re-establishing our forgotten relationship with the personality of Godhead. In the material world, we are presently in utter ignorance of our eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Pangoh appears in a verse in which Krishna's Kaviraj offers obeisances to Madan Mohan. And Pangoh refers to one who cannot move independently by his own strength. And Mandamate is one who is less intelligent because he is too absorbed in materialistic activities. The idea is that Prabhu Goswami is saying, I am a Pangu I am a Mandamati, and the lotus feet of Radha Madan Mohan are my everything. So this is a remark about that. That Pangu literally means lame, but in this context refers to one who cannot spiritually progress by his own strength. Mandamatehe derived from Mandamati. Mandamati means dull, one whose intelligence is dull. So Mandamatehi refers to one who is less intelligent. Why is he less intelligent? I mean, Kaviraj Goswami is taking the role of a conditioned soul. Why is that conditioned soul considered to be less intelligent? Because he's too absorbed in materialistic activities. His spiritual intelligence has diminished and it's become very dull. This is a simple fact that when the more materialistic we become, the less intelligent we become on how to progress tangibly in Krishna consciousness. It is best for such persons not to aspire for success in fruitive activities or mental speculation, but instead simply to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The perfection of life is simply to surrender to the Supreme. In the beginning of our spiritual life, we must therefore worship Madan Mohan so that he may attract us and nullify our attachment for material sense gratification. So the idea is that even if we have, let us say, deities of Shri Radha Krishna in our temple, whom we accept as our worshipable deities, it is best that we pray to them in their role as Radha Madan Mohan. This relationship with Madan Mohan is necessary for neophyte devotees. When one wishes to render service to the Lord with strong attachment, one worships Govinda on the platform of transcendental service. When one wishes to render service to the Lord with strong attachment, one worships. Okay, wait, I got an idea. I got an idea. Wait, I got it. Yeah, I got it. When one wishes to render service to the Lord with strong attachment, one worships Govinda on the platform of transcendental service. Govinda is the reservoir of all pleasures. This is literal meaning of Govinda. When by the grace of Krishna and the devotees, one reaches perfection in devotion service, he can appreciate Krishna as Gopijana Vallabha, the pleasure deity of the damsels of Braja. So in other words, we initially are allowed by Yogamaya to appreciate Krishna as Madana Mohana, and then as Govinda, and then as Gopijana Vallabha. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this mode of devotion service in 3 stages. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught us how to do devotion service step by step. But initially, we have to become fully purified. Then, in a pure state, engage in devotion service, hankering to attain Prema Bhakti, after which we attain the cherished goal of Prema Bhakti. And therefore, these worshipable deities were installed in Vrindavan by different Goswamis. They are very dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas there, who visit the temples at least once a day. Besides the temples of these 3 deities, many other temples have been established in Vrindavan, such as the temple of Radha Damodar of Jiva Goswami, the temple of Shyamasundar of Shyamananda Goswami, the temple of Gokulananda of Lokanath Goswami, and the temple of Radharaman of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. There are 7 principal temples over 400 years old that are the most important of the 5,000 temples now existing in Vrindavan. Gaudiya. Why does he talk about Gaudiya? Because it comes here. 18 Thakur Gaudiya ke Kuriyachen Atmasar. They have absorbed the heart and soul of all the Gaudiyas. So now he begins to explain who is a Gaudiya. Gaudiya indicates the part of India between the southern side of the Himalayan mountains and the northern part of the Vindhya hills, which is called Aryavarta, or the land of the Aryans. This portion of India is divided into 5 parts or provinces: Pancha Gauda Desh, Saraswata, Kashmir and Punjab, Kanya Kubja, Uttar Pradesh, including the modern city of Lucknow, Madhya Gaud, Madhya Pradesh, Maithil, Bihar and part of Bengal, and Utkal, part of Bengal and the whole of Orissa. So Pancha Gauda refers to North India, actually. In other words, Gaudiya does not, Gaudiya can refer to those from all over that northern area. Gaudiya means a person from Gauda. Gauda in the larger sense refers to Pancha Gauda, the 5 areas under the heading Gauda. Bengal is sometimes called Gauda Desh, partly because it forms a portion of Maithil, and partly because the capital of the Hindu king Raja Lakshman Sen was known as Gauda. So for 2 different reasons, Bengal came to be known as Gauda Desh, the land of the Gaudas. This old capital later came to be known as Gaudapur and gradually Mayapur. So Gaudiya then came to be known to refer to those from Bengal. The devotees of Orissa are called Udiyas. The devotees of Bengal are called Gaudiyas. And the devotees of what? Just a minute. Southern India are known as Dravida devotees. As there are 5 provinces in Aryavarta, so Dakshinatya, southern India is also divided into 5 provinces, which are called Pancha Dravida. The 4 Vaishnava Acharyas were the great authorities of the 4 Vaishnava disciplic successions, as well as Sripad Shankaracharya of the Mayavad school, appeared in the Pancha Dravida provinces. Among the 4 Vaishnava Acharyas who were all accepted by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Sri Ramanuja Acharya appeared in the southern part of Andhra Pradesh at Mahabhutapuri. Sri Madhva Acharya appeared at Pajakam near Vimanagiri in the district of Mangalore. Sri Vishnu Swami appeared at Pandya, and Sri Nimbarka appeared at Mungerpattan in the extreme south. Now there are Nimbarka followers, I don't know how many, who claim that Mungerpattan, or the place where Nimbarka Acharya was born, is somewhere in North India. There are those who say that. But I think that there was another opinion also. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the chain of disciplic succession from Madhva Acharya. But the Vaishnavas in his line do not accept the Tattvavadis, who also claim to belong to the Madhva Sampradaya. The Tattvavadis, they are the standard southern branch of the Madhva line. They only go with what was widely promoted by Madhvacharya in his writings. And for this reason, the Gaudiya Vaishnava authorities, who strictly follow the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, they do not accept the views of the southern branch of the Madhva Sampradaya, which is known as the Tattvavadi branch. To distinguish themselves clearly from the Tattvavadi branch of Madhva's descendants, the Vaishnavas of Bengal prefer to call themselves Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sri Madhvacharya is also known as Sri Gaudapurnananda, and therefore the name Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya is quite suitable for the disciplic succession of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. There is a book called Tattva Muktavali, written by Gaudapurnananda. It was a Sanskrit book, and it was published by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur notes that there are those who say that Gaudapurnananda was a different person, a person different from Madhvacharya. And till date, the Tattvavadis say that Gaudapurnananda is a different person, Madhva is a different person. But even then, the very name Madhva itself means one who delivers honey, the honey of pure devotion to Lord Vishnu. And there is an explanation given to this effect by the Tattvavadis, that Madhva itself has a particular, it is connected to the word Madhu. There may be many other meanings to this name. But Gaudapurnananda also, it also has a meaning similar to that. Ananda means bliss, Purna means complete. Purnananda definitely means complete bliss. Gauda has the sense of intense sweetness. That is, in Bengali we say gur. We are talking of jaggery, sweetened to a particular extent. So Gaudapurnananda also refers to extreme sweet bliss, which matches very nicely with the title of Madhva. So Madhva Gaudiya certainly fits in with Madhvacharya's own teachings, even though it may not fit in with the majority of the teachings that Madhvacharya gave. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has elsewhere referred to Baladev Vidyabhushan, who has noted that Madhvacharya propagated in his writings certain peculiar teachings. Peculiar meaning that even though there are 4 Vaishnava lines, these 4 teachings are unique to Madhva. The demigods are the greatest Vaishnavas. Lakshmi is a special jiva. One can attain liberation only by surrendering to Lord Brahma, going to Brahma Loka. Only those Vaishnavas who are learned Vipras, scholarly Brahmanas, only they can attain complete liberation from material existence. These were teachings that Madhvacharya very broadly propagated in his writings. But he has also, it is not that these teachings are all pervasive in his writings. Most of the time he is propagating these ideas. But there are some places, in my own reading I have seen, he does speak things which are differing from this. So as followers of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are not interested in, just as we are not interested in all the teachings of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva, even if you look at the corpus of the 18 Puranas, there are 6 in Sattva-guna, 6 in Rajoguna, 6 in Tamoguna, which actually means there are 6 meant for people in Sattva-guna, 6 meant for people in Rajoguna, 6 meant for people in Tamoguna. And as followers of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are not very interested in the vast majority of what Vyasadeva wrote. We are actually interested in the highest teachings of Vyasadeva. So like that, we should remember, Vyasadeva also gave a huge literature called Mahabharata, 100,000 verses. And the Puranas, they themselves are also very huge. Padma Purana alone is 55,000 verses, it is said. Skanda Purana is said to be more than 80,000 verses. So if you actually add up just within the 18 Purana corpus, if you add up the verses, and Bhagavatam is only an equivalent of 18,000 verses. So then the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam would appear to be a small percentage of the large set of writings of Vyasadeva. Still, we are only interested in the highest teachings of Vyasa. So like that, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, even though they recognize that Madhvacharya is their predecessor authority, they are only interested in the highest teachings of Madhvacharya. Whereas the Tattvavadis, they don't understand that. For instance, Arthoyam Brahmasutranam, we know this quotation from Garuda Purana. But this quotation from Garuda Purana has been handed down to us by Madhvacharya. Jiva Goswami recognizes this explicitly. So we go to the extent of saying that Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra based on this. And certainly from this quotation given by Madhvacharya, it is clear that Srimad Bhagavatam presents the meaning of the Brahma Sutra. But till date, the Tattvavadis do not accept Srimad Bhagavatam to be this. They don't take this verse seriously, even though it is coming from Madhvacharya himself. So this is how the Gaudiya Vaishnavas differ from the Tattvavadis. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas are interested in the highest teachings of Madhvacharya, the teachings of Madhvacharya which are also presented in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the focus of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Whereas the Tattvavadis, they don't have this concept. In fact, you can say that they are disoriented by a number of other teachings of Madhvacharya, and therefore they come to a different set of conclusions about different subject matters. Our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Mad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, accepted initiation in the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So this is a direct paraphrase of the purport. I don't have it here. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport to this actually forms the basis for Prabhupada's own paraphrase of it in the form of Prabhupada's purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur left this world from Bhakti Bhavan, Calcutta, on 23 June 1914. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was then in Mayapur. Although earlier that day he had received news by telegram of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's impending departure, because trains were delayed due to monsoonal rains and flooding. He did not reach Calcutta till almost 8 in the evening, a few hours after the Thakur's passing. In the meantime, his other brothers had performed a cremation ceremony. In Vedic tradition, the body of a Paramahamsa is not burnt, but is placed in a samadhi and worshipped. So they had already cremated him, they had already burnt. Arriving amid sobbing and wailing, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati found his mother calm and composed, exhibiting no outward signs of grief. Wanting to placate her with meaningful words, he said, "Today is one of great happiness and not the slightest grief. Today our master has re-entered the eternal pastimes of the Lord. Now it is our duty to remember his eternal position, name, qualities, form, and pastimes. Henceforth we will follow in his footsteps even more concentratedly." Sri Siddhanta Saraswati's mother responded, "He departed after offering you plenteous blessings. He repeatedly mentioned your firm faith in Shuddha Bhakti and instructed that you should serve Sri Mayapur and propagate the message of Sriman Mahaprabhu." Now, Bhagavati Devi, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's divine wife, he was also as much filled with Vairagya Vidya and Bhakti as much as Bhaktivinoda Thakur was. Later on, after she passed away also, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he noted that she was also equally spiritual. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati next addressed the gathering of Srila Bhaktivinoda's kinsfolk, relatives, and followers, describing the Thakur's transcendental qualities until deep into the night. He substantiated that obsequies for a Vaishnava must be executed in conformance to Vaishnava directions as given in Haribhakti Vilas and Satriya Sardipika, rather than by smartha rites. All the funeral rites for a Vaishnava should be done in accordance with Haribhakti Vilas, Satriya Sardipika. In other words, you have to follow Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Accordingly, disciples of the Thakur performed the remaining rituals as appropriate for a Mahabhagavata. On 27 December 1914, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati established a Pushpa Samadhi at Swananda Sukhatha Kunja. Now, the reason why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was doing this was to establish Bhaktivinoda Thakur's position. Now, Bhaktivinoda himself presented himself as a very simple sadhaka, and he did not insist on these things. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as a follower, as a disciple, he insisted that Thakur Bhaktivinoda should be honored the way he is meant to be honored. This is something that his family members did not, many of his family members did not understand. On 27 December 1914, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati established a Pushpa Samadhi at Swananda Sukhada Kunj. In honor of this most exalted Vaishnava within centuries, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati held a 3-day remembrance festival there. Then on 4 September 1915, the day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Avirbhav Tithi, in conjunction with the Bhaktivinoda Memorial Committee, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati organized the first annual public meeting in honor of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur at the prestigious Bangiya Sahitya Parishad Hall, situated close to Ulta Ringir Road. Bangiya Sahitya Parishad is still considered to be very much elitist, very respected society of those who are well versed in Bengali literature. Several of the most distinguished intellectuals of Bengal attended and glorified the contributions and personality of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I myself was very surprised to learn that Gopinath Kaviraj of Varanasi was a contemporary, junior contemporary of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was a scholar. He published several books. Even he considered Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings to be appropriate presentations of scholarly Gaudiya Vaishnavism, fully in the line of Baladev Vidyabhushan and Jiva Goswami. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's hard work was actually noticed by the intellectuals of his time. Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji. Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj disappeared from this plane on 16 November 1915. That is 1 year after Bhaktivinoda. Several heads of temples had been awaiting his departure in hope of situating his samadhi in their individual mutts, monasteries, to attract pilgrims and thereby increase their own prestige and income. Thus, the competition generated by his passing was intense and nasty. A young man named Umapati described the scene. After Babaji Maharaj's departure, there were many opinions and disturbances over who would establish his samadhi. Hiralal Goswami and a few others sent Sri Padmanabha Brahmachari, alias Sri Krishna Chaitanya Das, to Mayapur to fetch Srila Prabhupada and told me to go with him. As we were crossing the river by ferry boat, we saw Prabhupada coming barefooted and wearing a warm green chadar. With him was Sri Paramananda Brahmachari. It was Chaturmasya, and Prabhupada's hair and beard were long. Seeing him, we prostrated in respect and apprised him in detail of the situation. After crossing the river, Prabhupada arrived at the Rani Dharmashala, where Babaji Maharaj used to stay. The Mahantas of the Akras, Akra, it is like, it's one type of monastery. It's a monastery. In Navadvip, were arguing among themselves about taking Babaji Maharaj's spiritually blissful body for inaugurating a samadhi. Because the shrine of such a Siddha Mahatma could be used to raise money. Srila Prabhupada balked at their illegitimate attempts. He did not accept, fearing a breach of peace. The Navadip police inspector arrived. After much hullabaloo, Babaji remonstrated. Babaji protested. He said, Siddhanta Saraswati is not a renunciant. Renunciant means another Babaji, the one who has formally accepted Paramahamsa Vesh, the dress of a Paramahamsa, and therefore not eligible to establish a Samadhi for a renunciant. Prabhupada thunderously retorted. He replied back, I am the only disciple of Paramahamsa Babaji Maharaj. Even though I am not officially a renunciate, I am a celibate brahmachari. And by the grace of Babaji Maharaj, I am not furtively addicted to abominable habits. I am not secretly addicted to abominable habits or involved in fornication, not involved in sexual activities, as are certain simian people, as are certain people who are like monkeys. If anyone here is a renunciant of truly stainless character, we have no objection to his establishing Babaji Maharaj Samadhi. He who within the last 1 year or 6 months, 1 month, or at least within the last 3 days has not had any illicit contact with a woman will be able to touch this spiritually blissful body. If anyone else touches it, he will be completely ruined. The police inspector asked Prabhupada how evidence of this could be ascertained, to which Prabhupada replied that he would accept their word. Everyone present was astonished to see those dressed as Babajis turn their backs one by one and quietly disappear. Some 2 or 3 months before his departure, during apparent sickness, Srila Gauranga Das Babaji had called Sri Siddhanta Saraswati from Mayapur and instructed that his Samadhi should be established either in Mayapur or Godruma. But if neither of these alternatives were possible, then his body should be dragged by municipal sweepers through the streets of Kulia and finally thrown in the Ganga. But due to pressure from others, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was now unable to take the transcendental form of his Guru Maharaj to Mayapur. Nor could he accede, nor could he agree, nor could he accede to, nor could he agree with those persons repeating Babaji Maharaj's words, that his form be towed in the street, be dragged in the streets. In response to their demand, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati stated, My Shri Gurudev, whom Krishna Chandra himself feels privileged to carry on his head and shoulders, spoke such humble words to destroy the arrogance of non-devotees, posing as if they are devotees. Even though we are fools, inexperienced and offenders, we shall not be averse to comprehending his actual intent. How greatly was Sri Gaurasundar embellished, adorned by dancing, while holding on his lap the spiritually blissful form of Thakur Haridas after his passing, following in Sriman Mahaprabhu's footsteps. We shall carry the transcendental form of Babaji Maharaj on our heads. The next day, with his own hands, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati dug out and shaped the Samadhi on an alluvial bank of the Ganga in Kulia, in an area by the bank of the Ganga, which was sufficiently soft enough for this purpose. In the vicinity where Babaji Maharaj had performed much bhajan. Perform much bhajan means chant the holy names. The site was owned by the brothers Ananta and Vanamali Poddar, prosperous businessmen who had been assisting Srila Saraswati Thakur for some years and were accepted within his circle, claiming to have donated that property and given up all rights to it. They personally labored and spent money both for establishing a plinth thereat and later for daily services conducted there under Sri Siddhanta Saraswati direction and for the large annual festival celebrating Babaji Maharaj Tirobha. So initially they helped Srila Saraswati Thakur. Yet after a few years, Ananta and Vanamali's outlook changed. And they attempted to claim that site in the transcendental dham as family property. Ignoring the repeated protests of Sri Siddhanta Saraswati and his followers and sympathizers, the brothers eventually forbade them access to the samadhi. As a result of these heinous offenses, Ananta and Vanamali soon lost their considerable wealth. They lost their money, the money that they had dishonestly earned, and underwent acute domestic problems, later losing both the samadhi and the land on which it was situated and being sent to jail for 6 months. Upon Babaji Maharaj's disappearance, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati inwardly bemoaned. He cried, "Now who will chastise me to make me understand the truth as it is?" Having seen many disturbances arise in the Vaishnava community following the Tirobhav of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just 16 months before, feeling disappointment and hopelessness, and keenly suffering the absence of his two muses, suffering the absence of his two gurus, Siddhanta Saraswati resolved to keep to himself and desist from speaking Harikatha to others. Although he had commented on 8 of the 11 verses of Anuvritti, a further elaboration on Bhaktivinoda's Piyusha Varshini Vritti gloss on Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, which he was composing on Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's specific order, he ceased working on it. He lamented, "To whom will I show my articles and books? Who will take pleasure in my writings and encourage me to continue? Who will take pleasure in hearing about the preaching work and the increasing splendor of the dham and our service to it?" So this Anuvritti was written on Bhaktivinoda's direct order. Instructions in a vision. Let's go back a bit. Bhaktivinoda had already given a Piyusha Varshini. A brief explanation. Why did he instruct Siddhanta Saraswati to write Anuvritti? Further explanation. There's a distinction here between these two explanations. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati makes things even more clear. Prabhupada's own purports to Upadeshamrita follows Anuvritti. And from that itself, we have a clear understanding of what Shuddha Bhakti is. Another point is, in Anuvritti, we more or less get to understand the sadhana krama, the sequence the sequence of following sadhana bhakti is much more clear here. Initially, we have to ensure that our senses are fully brought under control. Then we become qualified to avoid anything which is unfavorable for attainment of Shuddha Bhakti. And then when we accept activities that are fully favorable for Bhakti, then we become qualified for Sadhu Sangha. In that way, each verse, as illuminated by the Anuvritti, each verse of Upadeshamrita turns out to be a stepping stone for the next verse. Now, without this mode of explanation, if we only had Bhaktivinoda's Piyusha Varshini commentary, we would not be able to understand that Upadeshamrita is presenting a sequence of spiritual progress. There's a reason why Bhaktivinoda wanted Siddhanta Saraswati to explain it in a particular manner. Instructions in a vision. Practically foregoing food and sleep, he remained engaged in intense bhajan while wrestling with the dilemma. His heart reverberated with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's order that he not renounce service to Mahaprabhu. And seeing the mass of people spoiling their valuable human life, simply taking birth and then dying without information of or interest in the incomparable boons offered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was unceasingly contemplating the need to preach Yet having experienced the kind of malicious opposition he would have to face for speaking the truth, he was reluctant to return to public life. Then one day, a gust of wind blew before him an extract from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, wherein Lord Chaitanya instructed Sanatana Goswami to compose transcendental literature, renovate forgotten holy places, institute service to Lord Krishna, and propagate bhakti rasa. These are the four instructions Lord Chaitanya gave to Sanatana Goswami. Taking this as a divine indication, but feeling depressed and incapable, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati pondered, I have no public support, nor wealth, learning, or the intelligence required to awaken interest in the populace. How can I convey to the inhospitable world the pure teachings of Sri Chaitanya and establish the manobhishta of my gurus? One thing we should keep in mind is that the world does not want to hear what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants us to make them hear. It is not just Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati saying this. Even if you open the Christian Bible, you will find Jesus Christ says that to his followers. Because the more we want to progress in spiritual life, the more restricted we'll have to become. There is no meaning to a religion which is not restricting us. And the more we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more we have to become restricted. Now, these are all things that the world does not like to hear. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was very much aware of that. That the more we try to give, the more they will resist. They will accept Krishna consciousness to a certain extent. And they will simply say that because this much only I can do, this must be pure devotional service, because I don't like to think that I am not engaged in the highest engagement. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was aware of this. Shortly afterward, one night at the Yoga Pit, in a dream-like revelation, he saw approaching him from the east the Panchatattva, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and numerous other great devotees of Lord Chaitanya. They told him, Saraswati, why are you worrying? Begin the task of establishing Shuddha Bhakti. Distribute Gauravani, the teachings of Lord Gauranga, universally. Expand service to Gaurnam, Gaurdham, and Gaurkam. Gaurnam means the holy name of Lord Gauranga. Gaurdham means the holy abode of Lord Gauranga. And Gaurakam means the holy desire of Lord Gauranga, which is to spread pure devotion service to Radha Krishna. The expand service to Gaurnam, Gaurdham, Gaurkam means right now you are engaged in service to the holy name, abode, and you are trying to fulfill the desires of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread pure Krishna consciousness. Expand this. Let more and more people serve the holy name, serve the holy Dham, and serve the holy mission of Lord Gauranga with unbreached enthusiasm, unrestricted enthusiasm. Broadcast Bhakti Siddhanta, the conclusions of Bhakti. We are eternally with you, ready to help. The support of unlimited people, immeasurable opulence, and boundless scholarship awaits the blessing to serve your mission. All will manifest when required. Come forward with full strength to distribute the message of Mahaprabhu's Prema Dharma throughout the globe. No worldly hindrance or menace will be able to obstruct this undertaking of yours. We are forever with you. All of this comes in Sajjan Roshani. Next morning, the few young disciples who had gathered around him saw for the first time in many days his face refulgent in happiness, shining very brightly in happiness. He related to them the vision he had seen Before long, he resumed working on Anuvritti, and thenceforth his avidity, his enthusiasm for preaching was fully rekindled and unretractable. This is Vidvan Prasad. These are all disciples of the Siddhanta Saraswati. He gave titles. Bhaktiratna Thakur. These are all Bhakti Vinod Thakur's disciples.
Yes.
No? This is Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Shatakoti Naam. So Godramadri, still there. He's also there. Prabhupada is seated to the right of the chairman. These are here. These are all major events. Prabhupada Math. Shuttala, the place where Bhagavat was spoken actually. It shows the immense prestige Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had gathered by April 1935. the Mysore guest book entry in the handwriting of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. We will come across this. The typical issue of the Gaudiya, a weekly magazine. This was a logo designed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Our ISKCON Mayapur's Namhatta logo is based on this. On the two sides are two verses. Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastuna mumukshubhih parityago vairagyam phalgu katyate anasaktasya vishayani yathasham upayunjataha nirvandha krishna sambandhe uttam vairagyam uchite. I don't remember which came to the left, which came to the right, but these are the two verses with a Bengali paraphrase. Harmonist. Nadia Prakash newspaper contain both ordinary news and spiritual discussions. Bhagavat Hindi. Chapter 3, early days of the mission, Sannyas and Sri Chaitanya Math. In 1914, just a few weeks before passing away, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had expressed his manobhishta, cherished desires of his mind, to Sri Siddhanta Saraswati, instructing him to establish Daivavarnashram, preach Shuddha Bhakti, develop Sridham Mayapur, and publish Vaishnava writings. 4 things he wanted: Daivavarnashram, preach Shuddha Bhakti, develop Sridham Mayapur, publish Vaishnava writings. Prabhupada also, when he, Tamal Krishna Maharaj stated that when Prabhupada, at one point in Mayapur, our Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, when he set up his, after the Bhajan Kutir, at the land where, the other buildings were supposed to come, he drew 4 lines like a rectangle, large lines, not some small little rectangle, large. And then he said, this is where our Brahmin devotees will live. This is where our Kshatriya devotees will live. This is where our Vaishya devotees will live. This is where our Shudra devotees will live. And so we want Daivavarnashram, based on Guna Karma, not based on birth. Worldly people who are proud of their aristocratic birth cannot attain to actual aristocracy. Therefore, they attack pure Vaishnavas, claiming that they have taken birth in low-class families because of their sins. Thus, they commit offenses. The means to rectify this situation is to institute Daivavarnashama Dharma. You have started to do that. Know it to be real service to Vaishnavas. Due to lack of Shuddha Bhakti Siddhanta Prachar, because there is a lack of the preaching of the conclusions pertaining to pure bhakti, all manner of womanish bad theories and instructions are being called devotion by pseudo sampradayas, such as Sahajiya and Ativadi. Always crush these anti-devotional conceptions by Bhakti Siddhanta Prachar and proper Achar. You cannot execute Prachar without proper Achar. Try to begin the parikrama of Sridham Navadvip as soon as possible. Thereby, everyone in the universe can receive Krishna Bhakti. Diligently endeavor to ensure that service to Sri Mayapur becomes permanently established and more resplendent each day. Shines each day more. Genuine service to Sri Mayapur is not Nirjan Bhajan, but to establish a printing press and to propagate devotional books and Namahatta. Do not for your own sake undertake Nirjan Bhajan and thus impede preaching and service to Sri Mayapur. When I am no longer present, take care to serve your dear Sri Mayapur Dham. This is my special instruction to you. People who are like animals can never attain devotion. Never accept their advice. Do not let them know this, either directly or indirectly. may be surprising to know that there are some people who will never take to Krishna consciousness. So once we understand that, there's no point in wasting our time. I had a special desire to propagate the importance of such books as Srimad Bhagavatam, Shat Sandarbha, and Vedanta Darshan. Vedanta Darshan is the teachings of Vedanta Sutra. Shat Sandarbha is Jiva Goswami's 6 Sandarbhas. Now you must assume that responsibility. Sri Mayapur will prosper if you inaugurate an education institution there. Never try to amass knowledge or money for your own sense gratification. They should be acquired only for Krishna's service. Never take bad association, either for money or any personal interest. So that was Bhaktivedant's instruction. The time had come for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to realize this mandate, to fulfill this instruction. Even during his years of withdrawn bhajan in Mayapur, he had always meditated on fulfilling the desires of his gurus by undertaking to make Shuddha Bhakti available to all humankind. It was for this that he had come to the world, been trained by his pure devotee father, made extensive studies and research, performed severe austerities. Even his polemic encounters in astronomy, his debates in astronomy had helped ready him for similar battles concerning matters of even greater spheres beyond. Now fully prepared, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati began a new chapter in his life, wholesale war on Maya. Again, these are expressions used by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. There are a number of devotees nowadays who don't want this concept of Maya war to be used. They want that we become friends. We should go and embrace everyone, and through love and through affection, bring everyone together. But the war that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati talks about is not a physical war at all. It's purely an intellectual war. And he himself stated, we will see later on, that this is the method adopted by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not do what the Sikhs did. The Sikhs adopted violent means to retaliate against various social injustices and so on. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that is Kshatriya Vritti. That is the activity of the Kshatriyas. Whereas Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, whereas on the other hand, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu adopted Brahma Vritti, the activities of the Brahmanas, the Brahmanical way of dealing with this, through spiritual knowledge, education, purity, proper moral behavior, and so on. It is completely different. So when we hear expressions like this is a war on Maya, the Sankirtan movement is issuing a clarion call for all warriors to join Lord Chaitanya's army. This is not an army where there is any external harm for anyone's body and so on. This is purely an ideological war. These expressions are used even in today's world. For instance, between the companies, they use metaphors of war. He has defeated his rival companies. This expression is very common. But we understand that it's not that one company is declaring a war, physical war against another company. It's just a consumeristic war. Who will win more consumers? So this is an ideological war. But it is a war. It is not a party. It is a war. A war means you have very clearly declared that you are going to take up a very difficult task of facing a large community of opponents. He inaugurated it by taking sannyas on Gaur Jayanti. Gaur Jayanti is Gaur Purnima. 27 March 1918 in Vrajapattana. having spent the previous day incessantly chanting Harina, his head covered with the cloth. Seeing no one suitable to act as a sannyas guru, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati accepted sannyas by taking a tridanda and sitting in meditation in front of a picture of Srila Gaura Kishordas Babaji Maharaj. Earlier, we know Ramanujacharya also had meditated on the Supreme Lord and Yamunacharya and accepted sannyas all by himself. So this, it's not that it does not have a precedent, it has a precedent. But these precedents were very rarely used. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had to take advantage of this precedent because he had no other option. Thus, at age 44, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati became Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. Consequently, his disciples, well-wishers, and friends became overwhelmed with grief, as had Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates upon his taking sannyas. And the pilgrims present for the Gaur Purnima festival joined Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's direct followers in wailing and crying. That's a very interesting note here, which I thought I should. This incident is described in Saraswati Jayashri. The associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had lamented upon his abandoning his family and because of his imminent departure from home and their association. But Sri Siddhanta Saraswati had been a brahmachari from birth, nor was it likely that he would forsake his associates. For on the same day that he accepted sannyas, he established a new temple in Mayapur. Furthermore, whereas Mahaprabhu's associates were distressed by giving up his beautiful hair and entering a life of severe difficulty, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati had been observing rigorous austerities even prior to his formal acceptance of sannyas. Therefore, it is unknown why the followers of Sri Siddhanta Saraswati grieved upon his entering the renounced order. On the day he took sannyas, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also established the Sri Chaitanya Math in Mayapur, revealing service to the deities. Sri Gandharvika Giridhari alongside the deity of Lord Chaitanya, before whom he had performed his vow of chanting 1 billion names. But now that deity of Lord Chaitanya is in Rudradvip Gaudiya Math. For further discussion of possible tactical reasons for Sri Siddhanta Saraswati's acceptance of sannyas and founding of Sri Chaitanya Math, see so and so. Often we come across the expression Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari. Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari. Gandharvika is Radharani, Giridhari is Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati remained in Mayapur for some days to oversee the newly inaugurated deity service and then ventured into the preaching field. So he revealed service to the deities. This is another expression. This is all coming from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Revealed service to the deity means the idea is that the deity is Krishna and Krishna is ever existing. Krishna is not on a particular day. Krishna is another Govinda. So to indicate that, he used this expression that from this time onwards, devotional service to Krishna in the form of these deities are manifested in this plane, in the human plane. So he uses expression, revealed service to the deities. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's usage of language was very, very nice, and it will be nice if we also start adopting it within our internal circles. For instance, his followers, even now when they publish a new book, say for instance, Srimad Bhagavatam, typically they write in a publisher's preface. It is in order to bestow blessings upon us conditioned souls that Srimad Bhagavatam has decided to incarnate and reveal himself now. Something to this effect, you'll find like this. It is out of great fortune that the great book Sri Jaiva Dharma has manifested himself here. Like this. All expressions that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati taught and trained his disciples. You have to learn to understand that these books are not just books, inert books. These deities are not just statues. These deities are Krishna. Krishna is eternal. Service to Krishna is eternal. It's only service to Krishna. It is only that service to Krishna which is going on eternally in the spiritual world that is revealed to us now. That opportunity is given to us now. So, Seva Prakash. The service is being revealed to us. That expression comes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati remained in Mayapur for some days to oversee the newly inaugurated deity service and then ventured into the preaching field. He already knew many people receptive to his message, including followers of his exalted father and those contacted during his own initial preaching forays. Preaching raid, if you want to call it. Now, with the assistance of the growing group of talented young men living with him in Mayapur, he wanted to systematically expand the preaching. Among them, Sripad Paramananda, Sripad Kunja Bihari, Sripad Jagadish, Sripad Ananta Vasudev, and Sripad Vinod Bihari were from the beginning leaders of his mission and pivotal in its development. They were central to its development. We will come across each of these personalities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started his movement with these few helpers and practically no funds, but with quite a few enemies. The majority of these initial adherents were from comfortable backgrounds. Yet they voluntarily embraced poverty to inherit the abundant spiritual riches offered by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. At the end of March, at Krishnanagar Town Hall, Srila Saraswati Thakur gave an exhaustively researched lecture titled Vaishnav Darshan. In May 1918, he spent 10 days with several disciples at a Vaishnav conference in Daulatpur, Prapannashram, near Khulna. Prapannashramas. These were set up by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So this Daulatpur Prapannashram was one of them. I'm not sure whether he personally set up this particular Prapannashrama. Might have been set up by one of his followers, where he initiated 2 new disciples and established a Bhaktivinoda Asan, as Asan means a seat. Bhaktivinoda Asan means a place where you seat Bhaktivinoda Thakur and study his writings. As a center for Vaishnava gatherings and propagation of Shuddha Bhakti, one respected resident of Daulatpur, Pandit Sri Ram Gopal Vidyabhushan, dressed fashionably and sported a French cut beard. From early youth, he had been addicted to tobacco chewing and every few minutes popped more into his mouth. Srila Saraswati Thakur told him, the Vaishnavas will prepare and give you the most fragrant varieties of tobacco from India and throughout the world, with which you may bring 100 yards away, into the field and offer to Krishna. All intoxicants are under Krishna's monopoly, to be accepted only as ingredients for his enjoyment. By trying to enjoy that meant for Krishna's pleasure, the jiva becomes a slave of intoxication. If we offer tobacco to Krishna, his senses are satisfied, but if we enjoy it ourselves, it will gradually reduce our sensory potency and humanness. These words pierce the heart of the Pandit, who thereupon quit forever both his lifelong tobacco habit and his fashionable style of dress, instead donning simple dhoti and Punjabi. After returning to Mayapur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati went to Calcutta on 7 June and performed several programs of Harikatha and Nama Kirtan in the homes of respectable people. Then he led a group of 23 disciples on a pilgrimage cum preaching tour to Orissa, culminating with participation in Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra in Puri. Upon returning to Calcutta about a month later, he skirmished. Skirmish means he quarreled with a foolhardy rascal, recklessly bold or rash rascal, who presented 29 provocative questions concerning the history and relationship between Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Srila Gauranga Das Babaji, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati himself, in a meeting convened in the house of a gentleman who had been a follower of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati furiously routed and silenced the antagonist. What were those questions? Are they recorded? Bhaktivinoda Thakur did like this. Gauranga Das Babaji did like that. You are doing something else. Bhaktivinoda Thakur spoke like that. Gauranga Das Babaji spoke like that. You are speaking like this. 29 questions are of this nature only. And this is not some unique, because throughout, for 18 years he was preaching. Repeatedly people kept on asking these things. You are not like your father. Your father was very soft on this. You were like that. But you are like shouting, screaming. You are like this. Your Guru Maharaj didn't even bother about this. He glorified these people. You are criticizing these people. So his explanation was very simple. The intention behind myself and Gauranga Das Babaji and Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the same. They have decided to act in different ways for particular reasons, but they have ordered me to preach. They have ordered me to explain the truth that benefits everyone. Therefore, I'm speaking. Basically, that was his point. Because repeatedly these things kept coming. It's not only that.
Numbers are written. 29 questions.
Might have, I think that they might have been, no, then there was something else. You'll see how many times he's being challenged, and he repeatedly deals with these challenges with great enthusiasm. He doesn't run away from all this. He deals with it. Getting established in Calcutta, Srila Saraswati Thakur already had a base in Mayapur, the most important place in the universe, and was committed to developing it. But he also felt the need to preach in Calcutta. In those days, Mayapur was remote and surrounded by jungle, whereas Calcutta was multitudinous and fashionable metropolis, throbbing with cultural and intellectual work. Calcutta was the capital of the British Raj for up to 1910 or 1911. Is it? But that is from when? That is from 1857. From 1857, it was the capital of India. It was said, what Bengal thinks today, others will think tomorrow. And Calcutta was the fulcrum of Bengal and an India immersed in tradition, yet tipping toward the new. An India not only befuddled, confused about her own culture, but moreover exposed to modern breeds of amusement. It was exposed to many things which are very puzzling in today's world, in the modern world. Although till recently it had been the seat of the Raj and was still lauded, praised as the gem crowning the vast overseas possessions of mighty Britain. Calcutta was also the volatile center of opposition to foreign rule. Thus, it was an ideal focus for propaganda efforts and much in need of it. Both British and Indians alike had to be informed that bodily differences of nationality and race were insignificant, everyone being intimately related as eternal servants of the supreme proprietor of all nations, and that adjustments on the material plane are temporary and therefore useless. These are points Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati repeatedly made during India's fight for independence. That it'll all be useless. And he's not the only one who said it. There are others also who are saying it. Even somebody as big as who is that person? Bhagat Singh. Even he said that. He said that India under the British is corrupt, and India without the British will also be corrupt, because it's not the Britain that is only the problem. You people are corrupt in so many ways. There are much more. The issue is not just that another country has taken over your country. Not only was this message unique and timely, but the very endeavor to widely disseminate pure Vaishnava Dharma was extraordinary. Extensive propagation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism had petered out, had gone away after the time of Narottam Das Thakur, 300 years before. The recent proselytical attempts, the recent preaching attempts by Charan Das Babaji and his followers had been successful only in adding to the confusion regarding the true spirit of Lord Chaitanya's mission, which remained for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur to revive. And while Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had been an inspired yet cautious reformer, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was a revolutionary determined to resume the preaching mission on a scale never before imagined, without compromising the purity of the past. Liberated acharyas, he wanted preaching to be greatly magnified. In the months after establishing Sri Chaitanya Math at Mayapur, Srila Saraswati sometimes came to Calcutta for short visits, during which he gave lectures at Bhakti Bhavan. Bhakti Bhavan. This is Bhaktivinoda's home. A regular listener, Sri Sharai Chaudhary, once supplicated him. He humbly requested him, "Your doctrine of Mahaprabhu is certainly glorious, powerful, and unparalleled, but how many seekers will come to Mayapur to hear you? Calcutta is a huge cosmopolitan city with people from all over the world. If we can arrange for you to stay here, faithful persons from diverse places will have the good fortune to hear you." The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati acceded, agreed, and by November 1918, Kunja Bihari Prabhu, assisted by Shrisha Prabhu and others, had located a suitable house at number 1, Ulta Dingi Junction Road, just 100 yards from the spectacular landmark Parshvanath Jain Temple. Although Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati established several more Bhaktivinoda asanas before founding the Gaudiya Math, this one in Calcutta became known among his followers as the Bhaktivinoda asana. It became the hive of an inchoate preaching movement. This was the starting point of a very, very powerful preaching mission. On ground level was a large room utilized for guest reception. The first floor housed 4 Grihastha disciples: Sripad Kunja Bihari Vidyabhushan, Sripad Jagadish Bhakti Pradeep, Sripad Haripada Vidyaratna Kavi Bhushan, and Sripad Yashodananda Bhagavad Bhushan, and their families. On the roof terrace, which could seat about 250, was another chamber where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati stayed with his treasured collection of books and manuscripts, which he frequently consulted for references to support points he was speaking or writing on. Although the rent of 50 rupees per month was far beyond the means of the householders residing there, with characteristic confidence, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told them to depend on Krishna, according to the maxim that he would reiterate throughout his life: "Don't worry for money, preach and money will come." Kunja Babu then committed to pay half, the balance to be covered by the others. Kunja Bihari Prabhu also undertook the management of Bhaktivinoda asana. On his invitation, several well-known and learned men came to hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and the editors of the English daily newspapers Amrita Bazar Patrika and the Bengali regularly featured his discourses in their publications. The Bengali introduced the Bhaktivinoda asana. His Holiness, the celebrated Tridandi Swami Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur of Sri Mayapur Nadia, has recently set up the Calcutta Bhaktivinoda asana at number 1, Ulta Dingi Junction Road, Gauribari, near the Vareshnath temple, with some devotees for the preaching of true Vaishnavism and to guard credulous people. Credulous people means people who easily believe things, against false doctrines passing under the garb of Vaishnava faith for long, owing to the popular ignorance of the Vaishnava philosophy. His Holiness will always receive seriously inquisitive visitors at the above address and explain to them and discuss with them as to what is really the most reasonable form of religion for the world's people. During the day, continuous study of scriptural texts was conducted in the presence of Srila Saraswati Thakur. Although activities at Ulta Dingi Road had started with but few followers, his unflagging preaching His persistent, tireless preaching attracted ever more listeners, and gradually the number of his disciples and admirers increased. Amid the swirl of activities, writing and publishing were not neglected. Within a year of instituting this Bhaktivinoda Asana, 6 books were produced. Deity service and other activities of the embryonic Calcutta Mutt were supported by begging door to door. In December 1918, the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati continued his assault against the cheating of the Casco Swamis by fearlessly touring the districts of Jessore and Khulna in the company of 10 devotees. Jessore was home to numerous Smartha Brahmins and also to Priyanath Nandi, the principal spokesman of the Jatagosais. Jatagosai are these Casco Swamis. Nandi's guru had given him the title Bhakti Vinod, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati commissioned articles controverting that a counterfeit devotee was using the appellation of a contemporary Mahabhagavad. Nandi had reciprocally published many challenges to and ad hominem criticisms of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in his journal, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Tattva Pracharak. 2 of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples, Shri Gauranga Vidyabhushan and Shri Priyanath Mukherjee, had responded with a book titled Prati Priyanather Pratyuttar, a reply to the opponent Priyanath. Ultimately, Nandi was overcome by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in a showdown in a Jessore village. The triumphant expedition concluded on 1 January 1919 with Gala Sankirtan in the town of Bongaon. Bongaon is where our Haridaspur is. Following which, the party returned to Bhakti Vinod Asana. This booklet is, digital copies are there. He later awarded sannyas to this devotee with the name Bhakti Vilas Gabisthi Nemi. The axle of the sky. Sun. Very interesting name it is. Ultimately, Nandi, okay. Oh, already 6:30. Okay. Just give me a minute. No, what I'll do is I'll simply okay. Any questions? Okay, no questions. So we'll stop with this. If you have questions, you can bring it up in Telegram. Pancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripastanubhyo Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.